Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Joan Collins is the A-list's favourite lunch date, famously entertaining, devastatingly sharp, and has remained Hollywood royalty for 7 glamorous decades. Joan Collins became a Hollywood icon in the 1950s, co-starring with the likes of Betty Davis, Richard Burton and Paul Newman. After decades of B-movies, guest-starring roles and chaotic love affairs, Collins was on top of the world. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Divas are forever, Joan Collins. She was the first empowered woman on TV. In 1981, Joan Collins had been working in Hollywood since the 1950s, initially playing roles that are easy to imagine first being offered to a more famous British-born brunette, Elizabeth Taylor. But the TV opportunity Collins received when she was in her late 40s would make her as much of a household name as Taylor. Dame Joan's career has been prolific. She has starred in 65 feature films and dozens of TV series, and is an author. Her novels and memoirs have sold more than 50 million copies. She is the last word in glamour and has perfected the art of longevity in a world of 15-minute fame. So how does she do it? An actress, producer, novelist and philanthropist, Collins has impeccable polish. Rather cut vowels and the straight back of a flamenco dancer, her eyes are huge and heavily outlined by her signature Davima-style liner that she's adopted since the 50s. Joan Henrietta Collins was born on 23rd of May 1933 in London to Elsa, a dance teacher and nightclub hostess, and Joseph William Collins, an agent whose clients would later include Shirley Bassey, the Beatles and Tom Jones. Collins was raised in London, the oldest of 3 children. Collins' childhood was spent in and around Maida Vale and was, according to Collins, an idyllic one with plenty of love, comfort and security. Her father, however, was also a strict disciplinarian and exerted a strong hold over her gentle mother, an attitude which came to irritate her daughters, who sought to rebel against it. Collins has said of her father that he was detached, cold, hard, critical, difficult, acerbic, and everyone had to please him. He said to himself, "I love my daughters, but I am not the kind of parent who deludes himself that his children are superior to everyone else's. I did not think of them as particularly outstanding in any way." Owing to their father's profession, Collins and her siblings were exposed to the entertainment industry from a young age, and Joan became especially interested in acting and film. While still a student, she made her stage debut in a 1946 production of Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House, and at age 15 she enrolled at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. The school has produced acclaimed talent like Alan Rickman, Robert Reed, Roger Moore and Vivien Leigh. She occasionally took modelling jobs to supplement her allowance, and through this work she eventually caught the eye of a film agent. Her father placed a page ad in Spotlight about Joan when she was 17. After making her film debut in Lady Godiva Rides Again in 1951, Joan Collins was continuously in work over the following decades, without any particular distinction. Many of her roles were in low-budget horror films. She signed a 5-year contract with J. Arthur Rank's entertainment company. She was known for her beauty and went on to play similar roles in her early acting career. She mostly starred in B-rated movies that would not earn her much fame. A string of roles as harlots and troubled teenagers followed, and Collins soon made a name for herself as Britain's bad girl. Because of her good looks and charm on camera, Joan Collins became a pin-up model in the 1950s. She appeared on many magazine covers, including Span. Collins' screen presence was noted, and later in the 1950s she landed a contract which took her to the bright lights of Hollywood, turning in performances alongside the likes of Paul Newman and Bing Crosby. She won some recognition for her screen turns, but they were never likely to put her in contention for awards. The actress's personal life became a bigger attraction for the tabloids over her decades in the limelight, thanks to her 5 marriages, including to actor and singer Anthony Newley in the 1960s. Her British film contract was soon bought by 20th Century Fox. The typecasting persisted, and wanton teens gave way to torrid vamps, which she continued to play, with brief respites, for more than 5 decades, both on film and on television. Joan Collins says she lost out on the lead role in Cleopatra because she wouldn't sleep with the studio head. I had tested for Cleopatra twice and was the front runner. He took me into his office and said, "You really want this part?" And I said, "Yes, I really do." "Well," he said, "then all you have to do is be nice to me." It was a wonderful euphemism in the 60s for you-know-what. But I couldn't do that. In fact, I was rather wimpish, burst into tears and rushed out of his office. The role went to Elizabeth Taylor. In the 1960s, Joan began working in television alongside movies. She was a guest actress on many television shows. It wasn't until 1981 that Joan got her most famous role as Alexis Carrington in Dynasty. In all Collins's 7 decades of fame, from her 1955 breakout performance in Land of the Pharaohs, Alexis Carrington in 80s soap juggernaut Dynasty, for which she was immortalised as a Barbie doll. Esther Shapiro, the show's creator, wrote the part of Alexis with Collins in mind. Even though the British actress was Shapiro's first choice, Sophia Loren and Raquel Welch were also considered. Collins became the highest paid star on the show, along with John Forsyth, but was absent from a number of the final season's episodes as producers could not afford her fee, which she later branded appalling. But off-camera, as many actresses do now, she also faced huge pay equity battles with Forsyth, who played Blake Carrington. Collins says she joined at $15,000 per episode and added he was getting $25,000 or $30,000 instead. He also stated in his contract that he always wanted to have $5,000 per episode more than anyone else in the cast, and that in any commercial that aired on the show he was always to be front and centre. They were so misogynistic that they allowed this to happen. Referring to the rise of the programme, she added, "In my prime I finally got $120,000 per episode, but there was a caveat there because they said, 'So Joan, we'll only get you in half the episodes this season because we can't afford to pay you.' I said, 'You're kidding.' No, I don't think I've ever been paid like John. While in containment, I started looking at a few old dynasties and was incredibly impressed with myself. Quite frankly, I think maybe I should have deserved more." She worked on the show until the series ended in 1989. Her character was one of the reasons why the show became so famous. After the show ended, she returned to working on guest spots on other television shows and films. She also spent some time on the stage, but nothing she ever did was ever as famous as her role in Dynasty. But Dynasty was only moderately popular with viewers in its first season. Collins made a dramatic courtroom entrance in the season 1 finale, and the show rocketed to number 1 in the ratings. In season 2, by abandoning a more arty, subtly storytelling approach, and by embracing the melodrama, including murders, back from the dead characters, and a terrorist attack at a royal wedding, Collins was part of that change, playing Alexis as exuberantly wicked and two-faced. She's credited with saving Dynasty. Ratings for the primetime soap opera weren't great during its first season, ranking 28 in the Nielsen ratings. After Collins' arrival during the show's second season, it jumped into the top 20. By the 5th season, Dynasty was the most watched show in the United States. The truth is, we didn't really believe we had this thing done as a hit until Joan Collins walked down that courtroom aisle, said former TV executive Ted Harbert in 2001. Collins recalled how people loved to hate her character in her native UK, and that they also loved to love her. The royals were especially big fans. "Oh yes, Dynasty, we all watch it," Collins said the Queen Mother once told her. I said, "Oh, and do you hate me?" She said, "Oh no, my dear, we love you." Collins believes people actually adored Alexis and women wanted to be more like her, because the character evolved into a successful businesswoman who was assertive in her relationships with men and ruthless about protecting her children. Collins's personal saga and career, however, never stopped unfolding, and after 5 marriages and countless Hollywood flings, the British beauty has a lifetime of steamy stories to tell. She'd had many steamy flings in real life with some of the most sought-after men in the entertainment industry. She described losing her virginity to actor Maxwell Reed, her brief affair with Harry Belafonte, and her engagement to the insatiable Warren Beatty. Joan married Irish actor Maxwell Reed in 1952, when she was just 18 to Reed's 33 years old. She had a teenage crush on Reed before they first met and kept a scrapbook of his pictures. Reed had promised to take her out to a country club for their first date, but instead drove her to his house in Hanover Square. After a night out with Reed, Collins said she stupidly allowed myself to be deflowered on our first date. Well, I didn't exactly allow it. When Reed proposed several months later, Joan said she felt pressured to marry him because he had taken her virginity. And I thought, well, I better, because he took my virginity. I really hated him, but I was so filled with guilt that he had done this thing to me. A few years and a few ill-fated relationships later, Collins met legendary actor Harry Belafonte while on the set of Island in the Sun, and she began a short-lived affair with the married star. He was 31, 6'1", with melting brown eyes, a strong nose and close-cropped black hair. His sexual allure was accentuated by tight trousers and a shirt open to reveal caramel-coloured skin. Although we had no scenes together, the all-British crew teased me relentlessly when they noticed how often Belafonte, who was married, threw me suggestive glances. He was mesmerising, and we soon began an affair away from prying eyes in my tiny apartment. Joan Collins was mesmerised by Harry Belafonte. Their affair was brief. While it's unclear how long Collins and Belafonte's affair lasted, their scandalous escapade eventually came to an end. After a few exciting liaisons, we knew we had to cool it, Collins penned. He went back to his wife, and I moved on. Following her affair with Belafonte, Collins vowed to stand clear of married men. However, MGM producer George England, who was married to actor Cloris Leachman, had come along, and Collins couldn't resist falling for him. The two began a full-blown affair that lasted 18 months. But after Collins learned that England was sleeping with Leachman, she ended their relationship. Though it was starting to seem like the universe didn't want Collins to experience true love, fate eventually stepped in. In 1959, the Hollywood starlet met fellow actor Warren Beatty at an LA restaurant as he dined with Jane Fonda. He was 22, she was 26. Collins and Beatty started having an affair in the late 1950s, which resulted in Beatty hiding an engagement ring in a carton of chopped chicken liver. Eventually the press learned of the couple's engagement and began making a big deal of their relationship. The attention made her excited to marry Beatty, but all of the anticipation to tie the knot with the actor made her overlook the rumours that were circulating about Beatty's string of high-profile affairs. At the time, Beatty was linked to A-listers such as Natalie Wood, Diane Keaton and Goldie Hawn. Although she was hearing about his relationships with other women, Collins stayed with Beatty and tried to ignore the fact that he had a wandering eye. He was good looking, but, as he used to tell me, there were better looking and younger guys out there, which is why he sometimes told people he was 20. Shortly after their first date, Warren moved into Joan's apartment as the pair developed their passionate relationship. Speaking to the outspoken media personality, Joan confirmed the rumour that Warren wanted sex 7 times a day. Laughing, she said, "He did want that. I did not allow that. I said it felt like an oyster in a slot machine." However, as a result of their amorous trysts, the actress fell pregnant after becoming engaged in 1960, but decided it wasn't the right time for a family. An abortion during Warren Beatty romance would have ended my career. Arriving in the United States as her film career was flourishing, she received advice from Marilyn Monroe, who told her, "Beware of the wolves in Hollywood, honey, because if they don't get what they want, they will cancel your contract." Joan Collins has candidly discussed her decision to have an abortion at the beginning of her career. She was 26 when she had the procedure, several years before abortions were legalised in the UK in 1967. She said, "I had an abortion. It would have been the death of my career, and I was by then 26. Of course, I hesitated, but I realised that if I was going to have a child, I was going to be able to bring the child up properly, and I believed very strongly that I'm in charge of my body. I was a feminist before the word was heard, and I shall do what I felt was right for me. It would have been wrong to have done that. It would have ruined my life." Collins had the abortion while she was engaged to Warren, who was the father. However, after affair rumours between Beatty and West Side Story actor Natalie Wood resurfaced, Collins couldn't take it anymore and ended their relationship. She believes that their relationship wouldn't have lasted if they had gotten married. Although she loved him, Collins later realised that Beatty wasn't the one for her and was just a rebound who gave her the attention she felt she needed during that time. Following his year-long relationship with Joan, Warren went on to marry actress Annette Bening in 1992, who he shares 4 children with. Ahead of his wedding, the actor was well known for his multiple romantic relationships with Hollywood stars including Vivien Leigh, Raquel Welch and British model Twiggy. Joan married her 5th and current husband, producer Percy Gibson, in 2002 at a ceremony in London. The author and columnist also divulged to peers how she was pursued by some of the biggest stars of the 60s. Joan claimed that Frank Sinatra wanted to fly her to Hamburg for a date, but put the phone down on her when she said she had to work on a film. The actress also said that Dean Martin banged on her door at 4 a.m. saying, "Joni, I just want to have a drink." The star added that Welsh actor Richard Burton also wanted to bed her, but she refused, telling him, "I don't want to be a notch on your bedpost." She is still working hard on both stage and screen, has a second career as a novelist, and in 1998 became a grandmother. Joan, being Joan, however, refuses to be known as Granny, and her granddaughter Mile calls her Dodo instead. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Joan Collins? She will be considered as a real diva forever.